Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Talk of the Town. My name is Terry Devaney. I'm here with the regular panel members, and each one of them in their own right have the tremendous position in the city of Bowie and in this county that makes things happen. On my right is Len Lucci, who is a lawyer and the president of the Chamber of Commerce here in Bowie. And next to him is the mayor of the city of Bowie, Fred Robinson. And on my left is Lynn Skirpon, who is the governor has recently made her a member of the Board of Trustees at the community college. And during the elections, she was just elected to be vice chairman. I live in Bowie and I have a house here and I've lived here for 50 years. I'm retired, so I have nothing really to offer to give. But we'll ask the panel how they feel on certain things. And I was thinking about we might just quickly go through the debt problem. And I want to ask Lynn, I'll ask you first. What do you think? Is there going to be a change, or the Gang of Six, the new group that is working 3 Republicans, 3 Democrats? Are they going to come up with a plan that'll fly through the Congress?
Well, there was some optimistic talk this afternoon that they were suggesting a plan that may work. I don't think anybody's jumping for joy yet. The president's optimistic. I think the debt limit will be raised one way or the other. If they don't do it and the Congress doesn't compromise, I think they will then have to give the president the authority to go it alone and raise it. I don't think this country can risk the catastrophe that'll happen if we don't.
Fred, what do you think?
Well, the interesting thing about the Gang of Six issue, it has really nothing to do with the deficit or the bond limit. This deals strictly with the deficit, and it poses almost a $4 trillion reduction in the deficit over the next 10 years, which is about $1 trillion over the amount of debt that we're going to add over this year and next year. But it's a good start, I think, and it looks like it may well be the framework to move. It includes, and I think people have to be aware of this, it also includes some major revenue changes, because it's going to close what is affectionately known as a lot of loopholes. But one person's loophole is another person's dedicated source. Your home mortgage rate is a loophole. Pre-tax on health insurance is a loophole. So all of those things are going to go in the right. But I think from a substantive way, and probably even from a political way, I think it's got the potential to move people to an agreement and then let them get over there and finalize the debt thing. My view on that is, anyway, I think we ought to just get rid of the debt ceiling, because it's not a ceiling. It's nothing more than a suggestion. It's been changed, like 175 times in the last 20 years. Even Moody's announced this week that the American bond rating condition would probably be improved if they just eliminated the debt ceiling.
Len, what about you? What do you think?
Here are my thoughts. First of all, I think using the debt ceiling for a high-stakes game of chicken is disgusting. And I think the teabaggers who thought they had a great political strategy in doing that, the latest poll shows they're coming out looking pretty bad themselves. So there's some good in that. Second, I think Tom Coburn coming out and saying that if you get rid of tax expenditures, it's not a tax increase, it's getting rid of special interest tax expenditures, is a huge breakthrough. And for a Republican to say that, and then for others to start joining him. So maybe that means that they can really tackle the real problem. Of course, that'll mean also the Democrats will have to cut back on entitlements, and I'll be working until I'm 90 until I get Social Security. But you have to do something. I mean, if you do it all at once and do all the pain at once and have both parties suffer at once, well, that's the mark of a good settlement. But third, I think this, although no one's coming out looking well, the president's looking the best because he's looking the most adult-like, telling people they have to eat their peas and take off their Band-Aids. And the bottom line, as Lynn said, is that the government is too big to fail, and they have to do something to spend. It'll have to be done over the votes of all these teabagger people led by Cantor.
Lynn, what do you think in terms of, Fred and Len alluded to the fact that there has to be some balance, and I agree. But when you look at the end result, and I'm not even sure what that'll be or where it's going, but I think that the things that kept the Republicans from not want to move was the tax thing, taxing the rich, and the thing that kept the Democrats and the president locked in was the entitlements, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. So when this thing is, and I believe you're all right, it's going to happen, will it be balanced, or will the middle class be hit very hard, and the richer people, the millionaires and billionaires, will they skate a bit? Or how can you put fairness together when you take several billion from something like Medicare, not Medicaid, take it from Medicare, which puts the onus on the seniors, and then say you're not going to touch the taxes, or even if cranked it up 2% for the rich, they're not even going to do that. So what happens? Where do you think it's going?
I don't have a crystal ball. I really don't know. But I think what they both alluded to was a share the pain. And I think we're going to have any kind of resolution, it's going to be a share the pain. I'm sure there are going to be some adjustments to Medicare.
Yeah.
Oh, Medicare.
Oh, I agree.
I think that's now on the table, and the Democrats have to give a little bit on that. And maybe we're not calling it raising taxes, but there have to be some tax adjustments to get the numbers to come out.
Well, I think Coburn's thing is I think, has some wisdom to it, because what it does is it increases revenue by doing away with a number of deductions, but actually lowers the marginal rates at the same time. So they're going to collect more money. They have the facade to say that we're going to actually reduce the rates at the same time. But the net result is that anybody that has a mortgage or depreciation in a business operation, or pays gets a pre-tax benefit on home or health insurance and all that, everybody's going to end up with some kind of a hit on that. And what it means is a lot of middle class folks are going to get hit as well. So I think there's enough pain in that for everybody to make everybody simultaneously angry and almost simultaneously relieved at the fact that there's actually maybe some movement towards a conclusion. And if everybody's angry about something, it may be substantive.
And the fact that Coburn came forward by himself was not a coincidence, because when Obama was a senator, even though they were very different in their ideology, Coburn and Obama were like best friends, and socialized together and talked to each other and shared intelligence. So I think this is part of the plan.
Well, if you look at the plan Coburn put out on his own this week, it called for $11 trillion in reduction over the next 10 years, which is, 4 or 5 times what this group is. And you're right. Coburn, whatever you think of him ideologically, is a very serious person, and I think he's willing to look at options. And he's one of the few people that says, if you add 1 and 1 and 1, you come up with 3. You don't come up with 5 or 6. And so I take his return to that discussion as a positive thing. And I think the other guy to watch for is this guy from South Dakota, I guess it is, Thune, who seems to be moving. He's a solid conservative, and he's coming along with supporting this kind of idea. So perhaps that'll bring some more. And then the new Democrat from West Virginia,
Joe Manchin.
Joe Manchin, solid, very conservative Democrat who's ready to sign on to this. So I would venture to say this gang of 6, probably in a week, maybe a gang of 40.
I think, excuse me.
If anybody's watching next week and that's not the case,
I think that's probably, generally, that's the outlines of what will happen. And I think the crisis is going to be avoided. And I'm just waiting to see where the hits will come, and will there be a balance in the hits, and I don't see how they can do that.
If you look at the way this thing is laid out, the tax reductions, I mean, the cost reduction, cost containment is up front. And then there's some tax things that come in. I think from a political perspective, if I was advising the Republicans, particularly the ones in the House, I'd say sign on to this thing now, raise the debt ceiling by $1 trillion or whatever, and that way, you got a year at a minimum, to look and see did they actually come out, and if they did, put a kicker on this that says if A and B do occur, then the debt ceiling thing will just disappear.
Well, you have
I
100
think
Republicans won't vote for any version of the debt ceiling, so they'll take some Democrats.
Oh, there's going to
they
have
to.
That's the only way. If Boehner and the Democratic leadership can get together and fashion a way to get a majority vote, because you're right, there's a lot of Republicans that can vote no under any circumstances.
Our Congressman Hoyer was on the television tonight, and he said that they will need Dems to get this thing together. And he said, and he predicted, as the whip, he predicted that they would have the Democratic votes to go along with the Gang of Six would have the Democratic votes they needed to get this thing done. And that was within
I think
the last 2 hours.
You're going to see the House Democrats, I think, kind of be slowly moving in that direction, because the Senate Democrats have walked them out on that ledge a couple of times, and then they've pulled back. So I think everybody on the House side is going to be a little cautious, because I don't know that there's a feeling of, do we really trust these guys over in the Senate when it comes to carrying through on this?
I think
but you're right, the arithmetic only works if you get a bunch of Republicans and a bunch of Democrats to come in and say, we're going to put ideology aside.
And he said they'd be there.
The collapse of the world economy would be a fascinating story.
Oh yeah, it would be.
Yeah.
But it isn't. It's a tragedy. And of course, the recent poll had 72% of the people in the United States saying that the Republicans were the ones that were not handling this whole thing well, that they were the ones that were intransient on what they would or wouldn't do. And of course, there's some question about the validity of the 72%. It was taken by CBS.
The CBS poll, they polled a small number of folks, and they polled all adults, not registered voters, not likely voters, but all adults. And apparently there's some question about the separate cohorts in the total as to whether, I saw one report that said there was like 15 or 20% of the people that participated were Republicans, and 2 or 3 times that were Democrats, and then the balance were independents. So you're going to get a skew on that. But the reality is the whole poll said that all of Congress was basically useless. They were all in the 20s.
That's true.
And the president did get a little bit better than
the president was in the 40s. Yeah.
Yes, he was 40.
Next year's election might be settled in the next few weeks.
I think it's probably going to really have an impact on 2012. I think it will.
I think it will if it somehow moves forward to do something with unemployment and some of the other major draws on the economy.
Michelle White and the Seven Dwarfs.
My unscientific poll of my Facebook friends
I'm ready.
is generally that everybody is upset with everyone in Congress.
Oh, no
it doesn't
question.
matter, Democrat, Republican, and the gist of it is, get to work, get this done. This is ridiculous. It's been long enough. Work together, come up with some plan. But it's both parties.
Well, it's the interesting part of it that the entire country and the citizens in the United States all feel the heat on this thing. And it's not only the internal heat within our own country, but they look at the global problems that would stem from not doing anything the way they've been diddling around with it. And that is a global economic disaster. Could hurt forever. We're still going to be hurting, I think, for years to come.
No question.
But we got an opportunity